I'm Carmen. I went to school at the University of Illinois for both undergrad and grad school. In undergrad, I studied community health with an emphasis on rehabilitation and disability studies. And in graduate school, I studied rehabilitation. Probably it's still one of my dream jobs, which was my dream job when I went into the program to work in a higher education setting with persons with disabilities. That's one of my dream jobs. Um, Someday I would eventually like to work with Able Co-op as well. But I do really like the higher education setting, so perhaps in the long term that's what I would like to do. My main job is that I run groups for young adults with disabilities in my city in Ontario, and one is a social group, and then there's a peer mentoring group, and then there's like a seminar sort of style group as well. So that's my main job, and right now I'm doing a work study for a insurance company in my city as well.
So you have 2 part-time jobs?
In a manner of speaking. By the time the people see this video, I don't know if I'll still have to, but in a manner of speaking, yes.
Would you rather have one full-time job?
Truly, no. I don't think so. At my insurance job right now, I work 4 hours a day, and even though it doesn't feel like, it feels like I only work 4 hours a day, like, with the time that everything else takes, I don't know if I could, at least right now, handle working longer than that, just being that, like, everything else I have to do, I'm just not quite sure. So I'm quite content with this schedule, and I wouldn't mind keeping it, actually.
Is there anything preventing you from achieving your employment goals?
Well, right now, while I'm about to get a little bit of help with this, my parents are pretty much paying for all of my PAs out of pocket right now, and that is, in my case, workable, but it's not an ideal situation. So it would be nice if more of my PAs were funded, just if it was through, I don't know, a government grant, or just like more economically feasible. Say if it was like through something like Able Community. So it's not exactly preventing me, but it doesn't make life as easy as I would like it to be either. So currently I live with my parents. I do have to say that my house is pretty accessible. So that's not so much an issue, but I don't enjoy that I'm 30 and living with my parents. For a lot of reasons. The biggest reason is I feel like I don't feel as adult as I could, even though I do believe my parents do their best in lots of regards to make me feel like an adult. I don't feel like an adult in as much as I could while I'm living with them. The other thing is that, frankly, they're not getting any younger, so eventually, like, in that sense, it won't be feasible either. Personal PAs do a lot of my care, but they don't do all of it, so some of it my parents, particularly these days my father, has to do, and at some eventual point that's not going to be feasible, which is, that's not very fun to think about emotionally, but on a practical level we can make that work, but then that comes back to the money situation, too. Right now we don't have assistance on weekend evenings or on Sunday mornings right now. So that means my dad has to assist me, and we sort of are all okay with that, for just because it does give us, in some senses, it gives us more freedom. Like, I don't have to do, because sometimes on nights when I don't go out, like, my PA will come and then, like, I'm just, like, sitting, chilling, doing my own thing, and my PA is just kind of sitting there because, like, my mom pretty much takes care of all the housekeeping, so the PA is not really needed to do anything else. So they're just end up sitting there. So sometimes we don't right now consider that to be feasible. So my parents will just do the weekend hours, but that's going to be changing a little bit. But eventually it's going to get to where my parents can't do anything in the physical sense, and and so that's going to mean more personal support worker hours necessary. Do I have any problems with finding assistance? Um, no and yes. I have been extremely blessed my entire life, including being here in Kitchener-Waterloo with really good PAs. But I actually thought that it did take us a while when I got to Kitchener-Waterloo to find good ones. Um, I thought that they would be breaking down the door, not so much because I'm awesome, but because unlike in the US, it's not as much of a cultural norm to go to university right after you're done with high school. So I thought that there would be people that would just be not quite ready to go to university yet, but they need some hours, so they would want to come work for me. And perhaps we didn't look in the right places, which is feasible. Oh, I totally do. Um, I think that then we could have a pool of awesome PAs that we would all share, and hopefully then it would also then become like sometimes it would be in university where say if one PA had to leave, they would tell their friends, and then their friends who were also hopefully awesomely responsible people would come work for us, and we would just all share, and so it wouldn't be as dependent on me. So like I'll make sure these people get this many hours, and if they don't, then it's a problem. Whereas perhaps if one of us goes away and we live in the co-op, then it's not things like logistics like that probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. I'm guessing. I love the idea of living in a situation like Able Community. Uh, I have always been kind of obsessed, even though I have a great family. I've kind of been obsessed with the idea of making your own family. So I kind of love the idea of people in a co-op situation living together and just becoming their own little family in that sense. So that is one reason. Also, for all the practical reasons that I mentioned, I would love to live in a co-op setting. I I think that I am an ideal candidate for it because I am a fairly extroverted person. I do like to have my alone time, but I am very fed off of spending time with people. And as Justin said in a video, co-op living isn't only suited to extroverted people, but sometimes maybe we would find it more easy. And I think that my personality is very suited to that as well. So Able Community is a place where persons with disabilities, it's an opportunity for them to really take charge of their own lives and of their own independence, um, by having taking charge in their individual lives in terms of with personal support workers and stuff, but also taking charge as a group and really living in a housing situation where they are truly making all the all the decisions, either they themselves or a representative of them that also live in co-op. And I think that that's the big thing, the big overarching thing that we're trying to do, as well as, um, you know, employment options possibly in one form or another. But I think the biggest thing we're trying to do is just increase people's with disabilities independence in whatever way that we can, as well as their participation in just something bigger than themselves as well, which I think sometimes people with disabilities miss out on, and I think that that's unfortunate. Esther asked me to be involved in I think it was 2011, right? And it was just I started to have that idea like a while before, but it was just us brainstorming. It was some of us. You'll see in the other videos, some other people as well. Brainstorming what a good collaborative community for persons with disabilities would be like. And since the beginning, I've just sort of been, part of things. Sometimes I will do things like taking notes for the group. Sometimes I do research. I participate in the meetings when we have them. Just whatever needs to be done. We all just pitch in that way when we can. What do you say that the person Would I say that I've been? I suppose that I would say that. Just because I have been here from the concrete beginning of the Able community. So I guess I would consider myself that, and I've sort of stuck around because A, I think this is a really good idea, and B, I think a lot of Esther herself, as well as the other group members, so I've wanted to stick around and see where this goes and what we can do with this amazing idea. What motivated you to do? I think a few things. I think again, the big attraction for me is, as I said, the independence for people with disabilities, as well as the community aspect. I remember when the first time I think the first and only time so far that I have actually went to a co-op, and I just was someone in college who doesn't have anything to do with Able Community. Someone in college was part of one, and I went to one for dinner, and I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is a great idea. Just like a built-in community, and their whole point is to be a community together. And she would just tell me some stories of like the relationships that were built, and I just always thought that was a good idea. So that's one thing that keeps me motivated. Another thing is just, frankly, how excited Esther gets about this idea. She's extremely passionate about it, and this is like at least one of her, I would say, major life goals, and one of the things that she wants to accomplish with her life is doing this. And I want to help her do that. Is another reason. And again, just the independence thing for persons with disabilities as well. I do, for a lot of reasons. I think that people with disabilities often miss out on being a part of a community, and that's like a huge thing for me. I know that, for example, in high school, I was fortunate enough that I was not bullied at all, but I was pretty much just ignored. I had like one or two good friends at a time, but I didn't really, like, obviously I knew, but I didn't really know that you could have like a bunch of good friends at a time until I came to college, and then I did have a bunch of good friends at a time. And I think that people with disabilities possibly also often experience that, and I don't think that that's fair. And I think that, I think too that people with disabilities, the thing is, we used to live in a place called Beckwith Hall where there were a lot of people with disabilities living in one space. And one thing they did not tell us after we graduated from Beckwith is what to do when you are the only person living somewhere that needs PAs, and about like how many hours should you give them, how many should you have, because if you give one too few hours, they won't work for you. They didn't tell us what to do about that stuff. So if there's several of us in one place, then hopefully like some of those issues can be alleviated. Also, I think that from what I've heard about co-ops, from some of the other people I've heard talk about them, they're just really empowering experiences. And I think that people with disabilities need to be more empowered, frankly. And this will be an extremely good vehicle for that to happen. Um, and I think too, I don't know, I just think that we'll be really empowered in lots of ways. But sometimes our PSWs are just supposed to be like our arms and our legs and just do what we ask as long as it's appropriate. So that's just one thing I've noticed too that I hopefully can be modeled in our cooperative situation. And so I think it'll just be really good and a really workable model in a lot of ways. I think community is just good for so many reasons, and I'm excited to help that happen. I think that independence really is all about choice, and I think that that is one huge reason that I really want to live independently. And I'm going to get emotional if I talk about it, but I think that often I don't get as many choices as I deserve. And often people with disabilities don't get the choices they deserve. In my case, it means that I think that my parents have too many opinions about my life sometimes, and I care about too much about what they think, so I let their opinions rule. In the case of other people, it might be that they just have no good housing choices at all. Like not just living with parents, but maybe they're just in facilities that are not right for them. So their choices are stripped away for that reason. So I think for people with disabilities, well, really for anybody, but in the context of able community particularly, independence is about choice. And I just really like the idea that able community will help facilitate people with disabilities being able to make their own choices and also to be able to grow as people potentially, because they will not only have to consider their own choices, but they'll have to consider the choices of other people, because it'll be a cooperative situation and we'll all be working together and our lives will be influencing each other, and that just naturally means that you have to think about other people's choices too. I just think that that this is an extremely innovative idea, and I think it's going to be a lot of hard work to make it happen. But I think that Esther and the rest of us are willing to do that work. So if you would like to come partner with us, we would like in a monetary sense or in some other way, we would really, really appreciate that. And I think we're going to do something amazing. And I think that it will influence the Chicago area and maybe ultimately the world. We'll see. In a really positive way. So we would love your help.